Full disclosure, news and commentary number 13. 13. Hey, how's it going? It's kind of light on the news, but the editorial might take a while. What's the editorial on? The editorial, the commentary at the end is about the Stranglehold show coming up, which might surprise some of you. But there's a lot of lessons to be learned. They've got their big old show at a big old venue, and lots is going on. I had a full disclosure tonight, or I had a tipping point tonight, and I thought it went really well. Special thanks to all the guests: Hold My Beer Hansen, Jeff G. Bailey, Dan, Logan Creed, Wrestler of the Year, and Matt Hankins, who came on and did a phenomenal job. Yeah. So let's just jump into it. Southern Fried had a show, 2 big cage matches, things that I thought were interesting. One of the biggest reactions anybody got was Brooklyn Creed. Yeah. Southern Fried drew about 200 for their post-Shindig show. So how 200 with, kind of hot-shotting some cage matches to try to drag people. I'm sure they were hoping for much more, right? That they weren't just basically going to have to build up from scratch all over again, but it looks like that's what they're going to have to do. Cage match be damned. And they have some angles going on, the kind of thing you do when you have your first show after your big, huge show. But Brooklyn Creed getting a big, huge reaction. Awesome. Can we add, by the way, number 11 to my 10 things I hate about Georgia wrestling? Can somebody do a cage match where the finish isn't a door getting slammed into somebody's head? That being said, if you haven't seen the Logan Creed Michael Judas match, it was fucking awesome. Punctuated in the course of that match by somebody finally doing the spot where both guys boot each other in the face and it didn't look like shit. And maybe the only time I've seen that, where that spot did not look like shit. Michael Judas, pro. Logan Creed, pro. Again, I'm putting up that top 10 list of Georgia wrestlers, hopefully tomorrow. I know I've been promising it for a while, but stuff comes up and these full disclosures take priority over everything. It's the one that gets everybody popping and talking. So, and I wanted to make sure the promo show for Tipping Point went well, so I had to do a video for that, regardless. Anyway, Southern Fried, 200. This news is sort of loosely Southern Fried related, and I find it very interesting that not just one, not just two, 4 wrestlers who have worked for both Southern Fried and Anarchy, either in the past or they currently work for both, or they work for one and not the other anymore, but 4 wrestlers that have worked for both. The scuttlebutt amongst a lot of the boys, apparently, is that Anarchy is sort of a farm league for Southern Fried, or the weak sister to Southern Fried. What a difference a few years makes, is it not? And again, does that mean because some of the boys tell me that is the case? But it is the perception, at least from a number of the boys. And if it's a perception from 4 people who went out of their way to tell me that, independent of each other, it's usually an indication that that is a much more pervasive opinion. I find it very fascinating. What do you think? Feel free to message me about that. I'd never really heard that before. And then it's not like they have the same roster, so I'm interested where that opinion is coming from. I do find it interesting, though. PWX with the We Deserve It show Larry Goodman went to on the 22nd. Elijah Evans retired. He's a guy that I booked on a couple of occasions, and I like a lot. And if it's true that he's retiring to just hang out with his wife and kids, good on you, bro. Sounds like it was a good show as well. But for PWX, July 7th is their big, huge show. And frankly, if I was anywhere close, I'd go to it. I would be excited. They have done the best job promoting that show. I just can't say enough about PWX right now. Amazing where that promotion has come and what it's gone through and where it currently is. No doubt that show is destined to be humongous. Unlike the Stranglehold show, which just has the vultures and buzzards are sitting and waiting. That's what our commentary is going to be about, though. What else? Not a whole lot of wrestling items to talk about. People are not getting their show reports in. You need to do that with your crowd, because Larry didn't. He just said that the We Deserve It show was packed out. I'm not sure what that means number wise, but it does mean it was packed out, sold out. So Larry's the guy on that. So congratulations to PWX for that. And what else are we talking about here? GPW. Predictions. They're in a shit ton of trouble, folks. Shit ton of trouble. Apparently, Darryl Morris is pulling what little hair he's got left out. He's in disarray. He's having to do damage control like never before. And rightfully so. I think if they are a ship, right now, burp, 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 is going off on that ship. I think Darryl Morris is a guy whose ego has become outsized, that he has become a mark for his own gimmick. And I mean, just the things he said to me in private when he was angry and responding to me saying that he put out that picture where he has no color and that was stupid. He's very upset about that, but it's the things he said in the course of those messages where he implied that it was him and all him that was carrying it. You know, as much as I hate the semi-disingenuous messages you often get from promoters and people like, we want to thank the fans and I want to thank all the crew that helps and I want to thank, but they're doing the proper thing, which is giving gratitude and credit to others. But Darryl Morris, that just doesn't come off of that guy at all. He comes across as a guy who, it's like, this show wasn't shit before I took over. That's not true at all. It's Woody who built that show from nothing to being in a position where they had good-sized crowds that Darryl Morris could sort of blow in there and maintain. But Darryl Morris is under the impression that he's been running everything for 3 years and doing all the booking and doing all the promoting and doing everything. Well, if that's the case, they're struggling, and who's that on? It's a good lesson out there, rant number one. You got to give credit where credit's due. You don't always have to do it publicly like everybody does, and you shouldn't do it by frickin' blowing your fans all the time, because that's just that's an end game you don't want to get into. But boy, if people don't know they're appreciated, if they don't think they're appreciated, that's all she wrote. Now, we all have egos, and we all want credit, yeah. But at the end of the day, if you have to toot your own horn, bam, 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 that's not much of a band, you know. Show, don't tell. And it's much more effective when other people, that's when I know I'm on the right track. People are always going to say I don't know what I'm talking about and look to nitpick and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, people watch this, and a lot of people agree, though not a lot of people express that for fear of getting in trouble. I understand. But you got to give credit where it's due. You got to give credit to the boys, and you got to give credit to the people who are booking, and you got to give credit to all of those people. You know, something I bandied about that interested me was who are the top duos in Georgia wrestling right now, meaning like promoter booker teams. And it's telling that GPW, in Darryl Morris's eyes, Darryl Morris is the promoter and the booker and the everything and the bottle washer. I don't think that's always been true. And the fact that he can't say it is an indication that he's further in the shit. It's hard to imagine him competing with a humble, revered man like Woody. It's hard to imagine them staying in business at all. I asked this question before, I ask it again. Why must GPW exist? Why? If it's just for the ego of one person, then it's nothing more than a vanity project, and it doesn't need to exist. And there have been a number of those in Georgia wrestling. Thankfully, there's only a couple right now. Which groups are they? Guess and see if you're right. All right. Let's get to the commentary. Stranglehold. So they got a show coming up this weekend. Big hankin' hairy deal. 51 people in the battle royal. All Road Warrior Animal. There's a convention beforehand. Let me say something about this. Wrestling conventions in Georgia have always failed horribly. And ones that are precursors to a wrestling show are even bigger disasters. This show is going to be a disaster, folks. And maybe they'll prove me wrong. Maybe somebody will go to the show whom I trust, and they will say that the crowd was huge and blah, 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 blah. But other than this, it just seems like a pointless vanity project. God, I put this question out there. Are there going to be more guys on the card than there are in the stands who paid to be there? I'll put it this way. I went to buy a ticket just to see how many they have sold. Folks, 3 on the floor, 3 in general seating. 6 tickets sold. We're fucking 5 days away from that shit. If I'm Eric Nelson, I'm shitting bullets. I'm certainly not going on other wrestling commentary threads on Facebook talking about I'm the greatest manager. Holy fuck. What is this level of delusion that's happening right now? Who are these guys' friends who are not tackling him and telling him this is a horrible idea? Now, I don't know the specifics of the financials or whatever, but whoever's putting the money up for this thing, you've got to be terrified and embarrassed. What happens when nobody comes to that convention? What happens when nobody is there to see the show except for friends and family? How many times in Georgia wrestling have we seen people indulge this fantasy about we're putting on this thing that's so great and it's so wonderful? And so remember that show that was done at Six Flags, right? The show that was done at Six Flags, the monster shit, and oh, they loved it, and the president of Six Flags came down, and it's going to be amazing, and they never fucking did it again, right? Folks, you got to be real. Where are the people around to tell you no? I mean, it's why the news that Heyman's going to be the writer for Raw and Eric Bischoff is going to be the writer for SmackDown was so well received, because maybe that means that there'll be a couple of people who can play off of Vince McMahon. It's why people hold on to this fantasy notion that everything's going to be okay once Triple H takes over. By the way, it's one of wrestling's 10 greatest fallacies that is commonly held by almost everybody. That's going to be a list in the future. You don't need yes men. You need smart men. And especially if you yourself aren't smart. Am I saying that Eric Nelson isn't a very bright guy when it comes to wrestling? That's exactly what I'm fucking saying. Look at the scrubs on that card. Does it mean they're all scrubs? No. Does it mean most of them are scrubs? Abso-fucking-lutely. Look at that shit. It's gonna be an unmitigated disaster, and what's shocking is nobody's talking about how it's going to be a disaster. And all the people who are on that card are pretending it's this amazing thing they're going to be a part of. And it's just going to disappear like a fart in the wind. Hell, I'm the only person who I know who's even talked about it publicly. What does that fucking tell you? My commentary is simple. Where are the people to say no? Where are the people who are smart enough? And again, Eric Nelson's one of these guys that's so opinionated, right? Always throws his opinions out there about every fucking thing in the world, but has he ever shown that he can do the damn thing? Not really. I'll say this, are some of the videos that they've put out really cool? Yeah, the one about Animal and that tag team, really cool. I don't think they're going to sell enough tickets to even pay those guys. And have you seen the ticket prices? You need to go look. Now, maybe they're VIP packages or whatever, but there's ticket things as high as $103. Who the fuck is paying? Like, what is this delusion? 6 tickets sold, folks, according to that chart when I looked earlier today. We're 4 days. Folks, when it's announced that AWE's coming back, well, what's their plan? And if it's not going well, who's going to be there to tackle somebody and tell them, no, this hasn't worked for years. Why do we continue to persist? I said it before, and now I see people echoing these words, and it makes me very happy because it's true. Georgia wrestling, even in this era of boom era, it's going to be the haves and the have-nots. And the have-nots are going to have to go away because there's enough promotions that are doing well enough. Even promotions that I don't particularly care for are obviously drawing well enough. Whether they're making money is a different question. But at least they're doing well enough that they're getting crowds in the triple digits at least and seem to be chugging along just fine. But then there's a number of shows that can't seem to make it no matter what. And it begs the question, if you're not making it, must you exist? I'll just ask the hard questions. Does Stranglehold need to exist, especially if this show is an unmitigated disaster? If AWE comes out of the gate and they get 40 or less, 25 paid or less at this show, what the fuck's the point? Have there been shows that had smaller crowds that served a purpose? Yes. But I don't see the purpose in those shows. Am I wrong? I don't think so. And why do the boys, just because they like being on a show, perpetuate these bullshit promotions and fantasies? It's got to end. But the funny thing is, though I may catch blame for helping end them, I'm not helping to end anything. That's them. I'm just shining the light on it and speaking out on it because others won't. And I get that. Other podcasts and stuff, their intent is completely different. But like I was looking at the Anthony Henry thing, where he's talking about how rightfully proud he is to be part of like a big card and everything he's gone through. And I thought, how many wrestlers are as potentially as good as Anthony Henry, or in their minds better, but are nowhere close to where he is or have the potential that he does? A lot. And at what point do people point at themselves? At what point do wrestlers stop being defensive and start being offensive about taking a hold of themselves, fixing their weaknesses, emphasizing their strengths, and working harder? Hankin said something really smart tonight. We were talking about promos, and, he was talking about, yeah, I'm competing to be manager of the year. Yeah, I'm going for it. And you know what? No one's going to out-hustle me. And right now it's a 2-horse race. It's him and it's Doc Brock, because they're the guys who are putting out content in managers, right? It's a hustle game. It's work. But it's also a fantasy-based business. And there are more than a few promotions that they got to wake up. Stranglehold. Will their show be a success? I don't see any fucking way it's possible. I've been around this shit long enough that you can see the fucking iceberg on the horizon. And I don't just mean the great wrestler who's going to be there as part of a 51-man battle royal. What the fuck? Like, to sum this up, one thing that drives me crazy is this sort of general notion, you need to go out and support indie wrestling. To which I say that is foolish. That is the equivalent of having a certain amount of money that you're going to give away to charity and saying, what you need to do is you need to find every charitable cause there is and give them an equal amount of money. That would be stupid, right? Because there's charities that you would feel more personally attached to. There's charities that you know for a fact do the good work and spend the money on the things they're actually supposed to spend it on. Don't they deserve more of your money? This notion that we need to support all indie wrestling is asinine. Some people think that I'm an asshole because Well, they think I'm an asshole in general, but they think I'm an asshole specifically because I constantly debunk this horse shit about all the promotions working together. It's because if all the promotions work together, you know what that does? Drags it down to the lowest common denominator. You know what happens when promotions compete with one another and work together in selective ways? The strong make it. The weak ones either get stronger and get better or start doing something different, or they die off. And I say, good fucking riddance. This notion that promotions need to exist because it gives the boys more place to work, and why would anybody be against that? You know what? Impact can move to every station in the world that it wants to. It doesn't fucking matter, does it? Be honest with yourself. Does Impact matter? Does it matter how good the show is? Does it matter? If it's not turning a profit and it's just doing shows for show's sake. And that's not to say I don't love some of the people on that show. Of course I do. But it's delusional. And Georgia Promotions on a microcosm level have to stop being delusional too. I said once of Josh Wheeler, for example, when people were like, oh, you're so harsh on AWE. And so I'm like, I'm the only friend they got. Because everybody else is collecting money from them or collecting something or getting something out of them, losing money and doing shows just to do shows. So it went with PWR at one point. So it went with Rampage at one point. Everything ends. Just some people need to learn. Everything ends, but you can choose to die with dignity. And there's some groups that need to be euthanized. This has been Full Disclosure.